Hi, it's Ginger Bell. Today is Monday, April 6th, and welcome to the next episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit. This day in the United States, there are over 338,000 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. We have 9,600 deaths, and we have 18,000 recovered cases. What we're doing is helping, so continue to stay home, flatten the curve, and enjoy this video. Have a great day. Hi there, it is Ginger Bell, and welcome to the next episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit. And today I have with me Miss Kristin Messerli, and she is in LA, hunkering down today. A little bit of a surprise for you. You were planning on traveling a lot, I hear, for the next several months.
Yes, I was completely set to be in nonstop travel through July, and then everything came to a halt. So just hunkering down over here.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're safe, and it's always great to see you. You recently did a very timely article just, talking about so much as far as social and planning and the impact as far as different effects. You had related it more to millennials, but it's really timely now as to what's happening. And I know you have a background before you got into the mortgage industry as far as being involved in social work. So, as far as, looking at giving advice and how to handle positivity and working with people with trauma, what's some of the tips that you can give people in order to manage first themselves, to take care of themselves first?
That's exactly what I was going to say to start with, is just always to realize that everyone is in a stress mode, where everyone's hyper vigilant, and including yourself. And so being very, very self-aware whenever we're working closely next to partners or, kids or whatever, you may snap a lot faster, or you may be a lot more, you're just more anxious, you're more on edge. And so being aware of that and really, really taking care of yourself. And I can share later a little bit about some of the routines I've put in place for myself. But then in thinking about how you work with others, the article that I wrote was on applying the trauma-informed care model to home buyers, because a lot of home buyers today are very anxious, having, especially millennials, having grown up in the mortgage or with the financial crisis and all of that. But yeah, as a social worker, I worked a lot with traumatized populations. And so there's this very common model, trauma-informed care, that just really applies well to any kind of anxious financial consumers, or in this instance, it applies well in thinking about high anxiety people around you, and if you're trying to help anyone, especially home buyers now or consumers generally, if you're working from a sales perspective, this model is really crucial to understand. So the 5 tenets of that model are: 1, safety. So understanding that your client probably doesn't, or customer doesn't feel safe. And so how can you create a more, really laying things out in those first meetings, always doing video meetings, that kind of thing. Secondly is transparency, being really transparent about what's happening. And then the third is choice. And fourth is collaboration. And the fifth is empowerment. So just thinking about how we can provide a safe space for everyone I think we come in contact with. This is really applicable because everyone has that anxiety.
Right. Well, and I think right now, rates dropped a couple weeks ago, and so everybody got really busy, and then everyone's trying to get things done, and we were, humming along on the purchase market. And so, everything really slowing down now for a while, probably until everything gets settled out, because the title companies are trying to figure out how to get signings done, and the county offices are closed, and so being able to address that stress and make them feel comfortable and to empower them, just to let them know that you're communicating, I think it's important. And video is everything. I just did a webinar this week on how to use virtual meetings, because so many of us, we have that face-to-face, and we're used to that face-to-face, so we're just picking up the phone call. And obviously for you being a millennial, your generation is much more used to being able to have the conversations, where as some of us may not be. In fact, I just had a call with a branch manager in Boston, and I said, do you have a camera for your computer? And he said no. I said, okay, so first things first, I'm going to send you a link. You're going to order everybody, just, go onto Amazon, ship it to them. It may take a couple days, and get equipped. So changing that equipment is important, because as you said, having that face-to-face interaction, especially with your borrowers, is so important to have them be comfortable. So, as far as, communication, and I know you do a lot with a lot of different organizations in terms of, diversity and inclusion. And, it's such a conversation as far as being empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to slow that conversation down and empathetic is important. What are some of the things that people can do in those conversations with borrowers?
Well, I mean, the virtual meetings thing is so important to really have a plan for that, and know how to have a good video call, put yourself on mute, and these types of things. I'm writing right now about routines to work from home. And again, like, I think what's really good for your borrowers is being able to take care of yourself. And so if you are scattered and all over the place and not able to focus, and then you're not going to have good conversations to begin with. You're setting yourself up for a failure there. But in the conversation, I think, going back to how you can help your borrower feel very safe, honestly, video is just so crucial, especially right now when a lot of people are missing that face-to-face contact.
Right.
And it makes us feel better to be able to look at someone. And so I think that's really crucial. And then and it also builds trust. And so
Yes.
Right now, as you're thinking about these conversations, do whatever you can to make your borrower feel safe, and that they can trust you. So that means going through all of being really transparent, taking the time to respond to their questions, responding quickly to their questions. If they text something to you, that kind of quick responsiveness is really helpful during this
Right.
time as well.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point as far as communicating with them in a variety of ways. So if somebody is texting, that's a great way to be able to just, keep short conversations going, and to make sure that you're aware of that if they're choosing that, then that's a great way to be able to communicate with them. So, really maybe just slowing things down and asking them, what's the best way for me to communicate?
Yeah.
And maybe even too, just having a list of questions, just your standard questions and comfort level. I think especially our LOs that are so geared towards sales, and our real estate agents that are so geared towards sales, they're so used to always coming up with the solution and the next thing. And right now we don't have that. And so sometimes just being that listener, I think, is important. And for you, obviously, with your social work background, that's something that's very important. What are some of the things that people really need to pay attention to when they're listening?
So I mean, whenever you're having a conversation, practicing reflective listening is helpful, where you're reflecting back what they're saying, so that you make sure that they feel that they've been heard, and that they feel and that you're actually understanding them. So a lot of times when you reflect back, like, so what I'm hearing you say is this, then they expand on that and clarify that. And so I think, that's really helpful. And then listening for some of the fears and anxieties that they're having, the more that you can, if they say, yeah, I'm just nervous about this, or I am, you can tell that there's some hesitancy around something, try to dig in on that and expand on that. Like, you are, it's interesting. You are in just a very critical time as a leader with these borrowers, where if you can help them feel safe and feel good about the transaction, which means digging up some of these things that they have anxiety about, then they're going to see you as the leader in their life. I mean, you have a unique opportunity to really shine as a leader in a pretty dark period.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I think too, the other thing is, this applies not just to your borrowers, but to your real estate agents, because I think a lot of real estate agents are very stressed right now. And they don't know as much as far as what's going on as what we may know that's happening within the industry. So is there such a thing as over communicating at a time like this, or is this the time you should be communicating more?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you don't want to be annoying, but I think this is a really unique time to bring leadership. And so I was just talking to a loan officer that had started doing, setting up video calls with all of his real estate agent partners and just talking, like saying, hey, I know this is a crazy time. I want to make sure that you're really equipped to have virtual meetings, to do virtual walkthroughs and tours, and that you know how to set up your social media communication, and then answer any questions that you have, you know, and be a resource and open that door. And again, make sure that those meetings are over video. And so you're building that trust with your partners as well. But yeah, I think it's a really, like, you know, obviously it's a really scary time, and there's a lot of dark things happening in this time, but it's also a unique opportunity to really bring a lot of light and to make a shift towards a lot of you know, digital adoption, and do some of the things that you've been wanting to do but have been holding back on doing. And then especially a unique opportunity to bring a sense of safety and trust and stronger relationship with real estate agents and borrowers who are feeling very lost in this time.
Absolutely. So you and I do both a lot on educating. So, you know, this is one of those times that I really think it's double down time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to provide some of that education. What are some of the things that loan officers can do besides doing a video call, but as far as like on social or maybe through email, or just, thinking about what are the things that they should be building in order to build that education?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics. I am going to do a shameless plug here, but I think, creating short videos of yourself to talking about, like I saw one loan officer doing an update every day that was just a market update. And I think that's great. He wasn't doing any kind of professional editing, and you can just shoot it from your smartphone and post it. Keep it fairly short, but yeah, people are just starving for this kind of information. And then, and we have really doubled down since all of our speaking stuff stopped and any of our in-person consulting stuff stopped. We just updated all of our digital content, which is all marketing, social media content, and it's financial literacy focused, very positive, and education focused, and stuff that you can share on social media. So on our website, culturaloutrage.com, you click on content, you can sign up for that, and there's a free trial there. And but I think, finding sources of quality content, I'm sure you can share more on this as well, this is a great time to do that, because again, you want to be bringing leadership, and we're even producing and sharing some stuff about like how tips for working from home, tips for digital meetings you were talking about, and graphics like that are bringing a positive voice in this time.
Exactly. And that's what we need. And, I love the fact you're talking about an LO that's just doing a very casual, doesn't have to be super edited. You don't have to have, your business suit on. This is the time where, we're all in this together and we're all working from home. And so, it's just a matter of getting the information out there that's so important. Mm-hmm. But then also building a strategy, and you do a good job with your content to be able to do that and help them. So it's not even like, hey, I got to think about doing this. It's like, no, you don't have to think about doing this, but you do have to do it. And so being able to find that resource, which you provide, and then expand from that as well, I think is an excellent thing to do. So
having a mix is good. Like you were saying, the expanding from that, like have a base where you're pulling sources of content, wherever you're getting it from, but then build on that with your personalized stuff. So you don't have to be creating everything on your own. Allow others to do that for you, and then create your own short videos or things that are sharing your face and your voice.
Exactly. Yeah. And don't be afraid of it. And, I think it's one of those things, people always say, I don't like myself on video. I don't want to see myself on video. And it's like, well, that's what you look like. So we love you anyway.
Yeah. Face yourself.
Yeah. So now it's time to get used to that and say it's okay, and to communicate. The other thing, and you talk about working from home, And so, as I'm sure you're thinking about this as you're, writing your article or doing your video, whatever you're doing with that. And I thank you for that, because I think it's so important to be able to help people through that. It can be a challenge. It's like we brought my mother-in-law, who's 83, over to our house to stay with us during this time because we didn't want her alone. And so, it's making it adaptations as far as that, because I haven't had that. And so, there's a lot of families that have children at home, and, how to create schedules around that. So, thinking about that, what's the first thing people need to do? Because we're into this for a week now, and when we post this it may be a couple weeks, but just thinking about what can you do as far as organizing your day to make sure that you are productive.
Yeah, I think there's a few different things I'll touch on. One, though, is creating your own structure. And so having routines, especially in the morning, but morning and night, is really, really important. Like what's amazing about working from home, and I've been working from home for a lot of my career and had remote teams and all of that, but it creates so much flexibility and opportunities to have a healthy lifestyle, but also creates the opportunities to have a really unhealthy lifestyle. And so, but you're in control of that. And I think it's really important that we remember that we are the CEOs of our own lives. We are in control of how we play this out. And so in the morning, having a routine, I include, meditation, yoga, and then a tiny bit of reading just to set myself up. And all of that, can be I do all of that in 30 minutes. And then have scheduled breaks in your day. This is what I'm not very good at doing. And I always end up just totally stressed out at the end of the day. But I'm trying to set timers in my phone even for these breaks to walk around, take a walk,
Yeah, get out, take a break.
Yeah. You don't have to be trapped in your home, your physical home. You can take a walk and come back. Even if you're just walking around your home, that's great. And so, schedule regular check-ins with teammates or colleagues, even if you don't have teammates. But I think, again, video calls and having those scheduled check-ins. I'm trying to think of some other, I have a list here. I was working on an article on this topic exactly. But yeah, to really take care of yourself. And I use some meditation apps like Headspace, and I've used Calm before, but that's to be able to sleep at night. And I think right now it's also really important that you get good quality sleep. But in a lot of stress, it's harder to do that. So Headspace has these sleep casts where you can fall asleep to a certain track, and it's really great. So I just recommend, really trying to preserve the basic needs. And if you do have people you're taking care of, like kids or whoever in the home, consider taking shifts. I've seen some people be really successful with that, where you feel you're, 4 hours on, 4 hours, the other partner takes that, or creating some kind of schedule so that you're able to have these breaks as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think having a schedule, sometimes, when you're at home and when you're out of control, as we are right now, the one thing you can control is your thoughts and your reactions and really your schedule. Mm-hmm. And so being able to do that and set that routine is very important. We started doing that, and I know for my team, it's like we do calls in the morning, and it's like they've now adapted to being able to get their own routine going in the morning. And so the more you can get into that, I think then the better off that is to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I have one of my employees is stuck in such a bad situation. She was in also a transition period of where she was living. She was looking for a new apartment. And anyway, she also started showing symptoms of COVID-19. So she is completely siloed in this back room of her mom's house, and can't leave that room basically. And so she was like, she's being so crazy. And And so, but she did carve out a space in that room for her workspace. And
Oh my
we were just
gosh.
like creating a little rug even that was like, that's my workspace. But, you know, no matter what your situation is, try to differentiate work life from home life. And
Right.
yeah, having a schedule, like keeping your normal work hours even, is really important to your sanity.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I think, for most of us now that have secured, it's like we were talking before that we started taping as far as your own island. It's like, okay, we're all on our own island now. So who did you pick on to be on the island? And you have to take breaks from that too. So it's like, whatever that is, as far as finding that, break to time out, being able to have that balance. But I think mostly it's a lot of it is patience with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
patience with the people that you're with, and being able to have that patience with the conversations, whether it's your borrowers, whether it's family, but just to have that patience, I think it's important to be able to do that.
Well, and I love what you're doing here, just, bringing people into conversation and sharing that with others. I'm even I scheduled some friend part, like we're getting together as a party basically
Yeah,
over Zoom.
a virtual happy hour. I did one the other night.
Oh
Drank a
yeah.
little too much wine, but I didn't have to
Well,
drive, so it was pretty
yeah,
easy.
exactly. Very responsible drinking here. So, but yeah, several of us are going to get on Zoom and have the happy hour. And I'm sure a lot more people are having community groups online
Right.
that they would have never done before. And it's a unique opportunity to really be able to have some fun moments in the midst of this.
Exactly. And it's funny, I have talked to more people in the past week than I probably have in the last year that I had not connected with. So, just because we're disconnected in terms of physicalities doesn't mean we have to be disconnected as far as having those conversations. And for me, it has been very rewarding, when I decided to do this last weekend, and it's like, okay, we got to get positive messages out there because, it just, I mean, for me, that's what I love hearing. And I love being able to say, okay, what's the positive of this? And so being able to have conversations with people like you and Bill Hart and Cindy Erdman and, so many great people has been wonderful. And so,
Mm-hmm.
expanding on that. And so, think about how can you do that too? What are some of the people that you can sit down and just have positive conversations? So I think avoiding having those calls like, oh my gosh, what is this? Getting over that fear. And it's like, let's move it and let's focus on the positive because that, like attracts like. So you want to make sure that you're focusing and attracting that you want to be able to bring into your life. So you have to focus on that.
And one thing I did with my team today, every week, we'll talk about our highs and lows, but this week in particular, it was just it was a funny week to do that. I mean, talking about highs and lows, it's like, man, this is a crazy world,
Right.
but I think doing that with everyone, like just anyone that you're talking to, your family, whoever you're with, or whoever you're having a call with, say like, tell me your high and low today, or high and low for the week, and listening to the low, saying like, man, like being there for them as we're all going through some kind of low. My low for the week was something weird. It was just the conference rooms got closed in my apartment complex, and I was just like, no, and but there's just these tiny moments that you can laugh at together, you can be there for each other, and then the highs that we really need to think and I don't know, be there for the highs as well, and think about
Right.
all of those things that we're really grateful for, that we're learning through this, that we're experiencing through this. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think putting things into perspective, I think it was Rob Chrisman had in his post this week that really drilled home for me that put things into perspective. And it was your grandparents went to war and you went to sit on the couch.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like when you do that and you put into things into perspective and you can't worry about the future. I mean, at this point, you really can't. None of us know what's going to happen. The most important thing right now is, to keep the next generation, our generation, I mean, coming together to keep everyone safe. That's the most important thing right now. And,
Mm-hmm.
when we get to the next step, then we'll figure out what that next step is. And so focus on where you're at right now and be present in the moment and make sure that you're fully aware and positive about that. And you can't worry about the next step. Before I got into the mortgage industry years ago, probably when I was maybe close to your age, probably a little bit older than you, I used to be a corporate trainer with Dale Carnegie Training, and he wrote a book that's how to stop worrying and start living. And I haven't pulled it out yet, but I think that's going to be my read for the weekend. And so what are your reads right now? What are you reading or listening to on podcasts?
Well, I'm trying to think about, I've been having a kind of spiritual book that I'm reading in the mornings just for 5 minutes. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just like a devotional type of thing. And then, but I just was given a book called Alchemy that they say is a really, really great book about branding and all that. So I'm excited to dive into that.
Oh, yeah. That's a word we talked about that word when I saw you in LA.
Oh, yes, I know. I can't believe I haven't read this book yet. I'm
yeah.
with that word. But also I plan to reread my favorite book, which is Circe. And it's a fiction book that I just absolutely love. And I think it's beautifully written. And I think that type of thing is great for everyone to be reading, where you can either something uplifting, like what you're talking about, and motivational, inspiring, or something that's just giving you a break from life,
Exactly.
And it's like a beautiful book to escape into.
It's a great recommendation too. And sometimes, and I think we as educators, we tend to focus on always learning things. And sometimes I forget, I have to remind myself, it's okay to read something else.
Yeah, no, and I always forget this, but a lot of times when I read a fiction book, I end it thinking, man, I learned so much more than I do from just a nonfiction book where I'm looking to learn something. And so, if you get good book recommendations, and I'm recommending Circe, definitely, it's you can learn a lot through those, and the experience is worthwhile. So
I will have to add it to my my Amazon Kindle, so I will do that. Very good. Well, thank you so much for your information. I always love talking to you. I always love seeing you. And
so much fun.
Be safe in LA. Keep us posted as to how you're doing. If we need to airlift any kind of drone wine or something like that.
Yeah. I'm set on wine, and I have, my food, and so I'm ready to go.
Well, very good. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate you being here, and you've been listening to another episode of Flatten the Curve, Not the Spirit.